Still dead, huh? Or are you too busy weeping over her corpse to pick up that headset and answer me? Nothing too glorious about the way you just died, I bet. Let me guess. Even after all my lessons, you allowed yourself to get sucker stabbed, right? Pretty lame. I mean, lucky for you it was lame. I guess being lame pays off when dying a hero is what gets you killed. If our hero of breath reached God tier, he would have been completely indestructible. Oh well. Damn, I forgot. I was going to stop ripping on that guy since he got stabbed through the chest and died. Whoops. Anyway, I figure you're probably safe from a just death too, since I'm pretty sure you haven't done anything all that despicable. Yet. I don't know for sure, but I'm betting that if I go to fight Jack, it will wipe out all the bad things I've done. I think if I die, it'll be a hero's death, so it ought to stick. Pretty good motivation to win the fight though, don't you think? One way or another, I think this will be my last big chance as a gamer. Still not alive yet? Man, you better hurry up! She probably doesn't have much time left. Trust me, what she's going through on Durst right now isn't much fun. Okay, I guess I should mention why I'm trying to contact you now of all time, rather than just skipping ahead. Remember how we talked about your backup plan? The one you have devised to defeat Jack in the off chance I fail? Well, it's not going to work if Rose is dead, is it? You have to wake her up. Breathe some life into her. Do the windy thing with your lips. You know what that means. Gotta kiss her. Don't worry, I still can't see you, so there is no reason to be bashful or anything. And since we are a couple of professionals here who are focused on winning, we both know it doesn't have any meaning. It's not like I would be jealous if I could see. Why would I be? Or maybe that didn't even cross your mind. Man, why am I even talking about this? Let's just forget I said that. This isn't really how I wanted this conversation to go. I guess I was assuming you'd be talking back by now. So now I'm just talking and spinning my wheel device like an idiot. Maybe I don't actually know how I wanted it to go. I guess I could just shut up and skip ahead on your timeline a little, talk to you when you're alive. That would make sense. But then, maybe if I did, I wouldn't actually say what I wanted to say. So, I will just say it. To be honest, I am nervous about this fight. But I'm still going through with it for a lot of reasons. To save my friends, or at least the ones who are still alive. Oh, and I guess to save reality itself from being totally fucked up. There's that too. But I think what's motivating me to win this fight the most is the possibility of getting to meet you when it's all over. Maybe I can finally put all this terrible stuff behind me. And I won't have to worry about being the best anymore or proving what a ruthless killer I can be. Maybe I can try out whatever is supposed to be normal for a human. Who knows, it might not be as boring as it sounds. Maybe, if you're not too freaked out by all the bad things I've done, or the fact that I am an alien, we could go on a date? Don't worry, it could be a human date, whatever that entails. No weird alien stuff, I promise. And no killing or murders, or even talking about killing or murders and such. Just whatever you like to talk about and think is cool. I could even be persuaded to watch more of your absurd human films. Do you like any others which feature that rugged human with the long hair and wounded arm? You know the one, the sweaty guy with the mutilated animal and the speech impediment? Those would be tolerable to watch, I bet. Well, think it over. Before I go, I'll get in touch one more time later on, when you're alive, and maybe have something to say about it. Oh yeah, sorry about your adult male guardian. I wasn't trying to be deceptive by not telling you. I decided not to because I didn't want to be the one to make you sad about it. Is that selfish of me? I don't know. You would have found out regardless, like we all did. There are things we care about that we just have to leave behind. It just sucks for those who aren't in as much of a hurry to leave it all behind as me. Wait. Someone's coming, hang on. Damn it, I've got to deal with this now. Anyway, if you actually get around to reading any of this, thanks for listening, John. If my outrageously great luck has any say in the matter, we will be meeting up in no time. Just, please, consider what I said.
Welcome to the Goosefond channel. I'm sorry, that was weird. I just wanted to see how long I could make the pause. Homestuck is one of the most iconic properties of all time, spawning with it one of the biggest fandoms of all time. And if you're watching this video, you most likely already know that and all the basic information, so I'm not going to bother explaining it. And if you do, you probably also know who Vriska is. Ooh boy, do you know who Vriska is. And that's all I'm going to be saying in this video about actual Vriskors. Personally, Vriska is one of my favorite Homestuck characters, and definitely one of the most interesting ones, pre-Act 6 Vriska that is. Along with a lot of lingering plot threads and character things from Act 5 that I personally think Act 6 handled poorly, Vriska is definitely one of them. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video. So, I showed an abridged clip of Vriska's final message to John Egbert in the beginning of this video, voiced by my good friend and extremely talented artist, Kazz, but I do want to give a quick recap of everything that happened Vriska-wise in Act 5. We are first introduced to the infamous Vriska Circuit in Act 5 during the Hive Vent arc. We see her a few times throughout the trolls getting started on their screw-up game, but she isn't featured much outside of her rivalry with Tavros and just her general animosity towards the other trolls. After Hive Vent is when her character really gets more interesting in my opinion. Firstly, we see her contact John, and after learning about Terezi's past trickery involving him, decides to help him out. As opposed to Terezi herself, Vriska turns out to be a lot more helpful, but still as antagonistic and rude as she usually is. She helps John a lot more with what to do, how Spurb works, and all that jazz. Later, we find out, however, that Vriska is a big part of the problems with the Beta Kids session, including the creation of Bec Noir. Upon Tavros discovering this fact, he goes to face Vriska and, well, this iconic scene happens. As we can read in Vriska's penultimate conversation with John, she doesn't outright regret killing Tavros. However, this clearly seems to take some kind of toll on her, or at least make her think. It's more so an unknown feeling of guilt. She doesn't know what exactly to think because her species is supposed to be able to kill without feeling guilty. It's a really interesting character moment for her. Because after all this confidence in her actions, this constant metaphorical chest puffing, this full willingness to murder if she needs or even wants to, her passive actually going through with that, she finally opens up to the fact that she doesn't really like how she ended up as a person. Anyway, after this, we end up at the final message Vriska sends to John, the one from the start of this video, and the one that practically sparked the idea for this video. The one that, frankly, almost broke my heart. There really is something special between John and Vriska, at least in the latter half of Act 5. I'm going to be talking about Vriska's side of the equation later, but I want to discuss John's side first. To be completely honest, I'm not the biggest fan of John as a character. I know he's supposed to be a pretty generic, nerdy, white kid straight man, but due to that fact, I feel like he ends up being quite bland as a character, at least compared to his peers in Dave, Rose, and Jade. However, I do think some of his best traits shine in his relationship with others. His relationship with Vriska during Act 5 is one made of, from his side at least, admiration and support. He genuinely respects Vriska as a person, and even after her confessing all the things she did to him, still does. Throughout his final conversation with Vriska, he appears to be very reassuring and trying to relate to an obviously very stressed out Vriska.
For whatever it's worth coming from a human, feeling remorse doesn't make you weak. I bet you're still really strong. But then, I'm not sure if I actually want to encourage you to go out fighting him, because as strong as you probably are, it sounds like he's really strong. And even though you killed tons of people, I think I would still be pretty sad if you died.
And then we get to Vriska's side of the story. When we are first introduced to Vriska, she's characterized as very selfish, antagonistic, and ambitious. She tends to blame her problems on others as well as her supposed bad luck before the game, in big contrast with her stating that she has all the luck during and after the Troll Scrub campaign. Yet, she has a softer side, and this side she only seems to show to John. There are only a very small amount of times we see Vriska confront the problems she actually has with the person she's become and the things she's done. One of these times is very late in the comic, in Act 6, during her relationship with Mina Pisces, but the first time we really see her delve into these feelings is in her penultimate conversation with John. We see her confide in John, telling him all about how she's not sure she actually likes troll culture all that much, and that for all the bravado and killing that built the person she is, she wouldn't mind trying to be more human. It's a surprising bit of nuance that Hussey gave her character, one that we can only see her confess to someone she feels really close to. She actually feels some remorse for the things she's done, even killing Tavros, which you wouldn't expect from the huge grin on her face in S-Wake. She actually somewhat admires the remorse promoted in human society. She actually thinks that humans aren't all that bad. But before this conversation, before John, you wouldn't expect that from her. So at the end of Act 5, we're left with some really interesting lingering plot lines regarding the two of them. How John is going to react when he eventually figures out that Vriska is dead is definitely one of the bigger ones. And then we get to Act 6.
But the point is, when all was said and done, that was just some stuff that happened over one day, which was a whole year ago already. I barely even remember what we talked about. By the time we meet up, she probably won't give a shit about me at all, which, let's face it, is probably for the best.
Act 6. Before I start this segment, I just want to say this. As much as I'm about to crack down on Act 6, I actually really like it as a whole. While it has its flaws in my opinion, I actually really like the Alpha Kids, especially Dirk and Roxy, and I think Escalade is just a perfect climax to the Homestuck story. As a whole, Act 6 feels like a really big payoff in a lot of ways, delivering on a lot of stuff set up in the first 5 acts, while also introducing a lot of interesting new stuff. Also, I love Calliope, they're so cool, and I actually really like what the Meat Root and the epilogues in Homestuck 2 did with their and Roxy's characters. And with that said, holy shit, Act 6 ruined Vriska so hard. There's a lot of things about Vriska and John in Act 6 that I want to discuss, so I'm going to split this section into a few parts, starting off with what Act 6 did to Vriska's character specifically. Like I said before, at the end of Act 5, Vriska is arguably at the latter half of her character arc, but I wouldn't say she was quite at the end yet. She was realizing a lot of stuff about herself, but she hadn't really changed her ways yet, and before she really got the chance to, she died. Which, in and of itself, isn't bad. A character dying before they can finish their character arc is certainly a writing decision, and I think it can work really well. But Act 6's decision to bring back Vriska kind of got me hoping she'd continue through her character arc. And we sort of get that too, in the dead Vriska that gets killed by Terezi and pursues a relationship with Mina. Throughout most of the act, this is the Vriska we follow. The dead Vriska stabbed in the back by Terezi and thoroughly enjoying her life in the afterlife, together with Tavros in her quest to personally kill Lord English. This Vriska is also the one that dates a doomed John for a while and meets our prime John again later on. She, along with Mina, Tavros, Aranea, an army of ghosts, and the occasional John Egbert appearance, go on a quest for the Outer Ring to find the only weapon that can stop Lord English. And along with getting right back to adventure, she also gets right back to being Vriska, as in manipulating people, being an asshole to Tavros, all that jazz. Especially that second thing really bothers me. So much of later Act 5 Vriska stuff was about how she felt about killing Tavros, discussing her relationship to him and to the Alternian ideals imprinted upon her, and how she actually seems to regret doing it. Yet this Vriska just makes fun of and belittles Tavros all the same. She just says,
"Oh yeah, I said I wouldn't do that anymore,"
every so often. She changes a little. She gains an affinity for storytelling from her dance sister Aranea, and she's actually found a real goal to work towards. Although it's hard to tell how much she actually cares about the thing she's trying to accomplish, or if she's still just trying to chase the Alternian ideal of the warlord she thinks she needs to be. This conqueror and adventurer, the multiplanetary pirate Marquis Spinneret Mindfang inspired her to be. Only after she ditches her plan and runs away with Mina does she truly change as a character, but it quickly becomes clear that Hussey does not see this as a good thing. this more introspective Vriska is not only framed as a joke by the story, but practically called one by the post-retcon Vriska, who, in comparison to our dead Vriska, has changed even less. Oh yeah, let's talk about post-retcon Vriska for a second, because I have some things to say. I think post-retcon Vriska is genuinely the best argument people who hate Vriska have against her. She has seemingly not learned anything from her past behavior, only falling deeper into her worst attributes. And the story seemingly applauds her for this, as a reintroduction to aliveness basically fixes everything. Which, as a writing decision on its own, really irks me as well. It is the most blatant and least disguised example of Deus Ex Machina I could ever imagine, bringing a character back from the dead to basically fix everything that went wrong without her. Not only do I think it's a bad writing decision, but a lazy one as well. God, I could ramble about this more, but let's just get to the next section. Let's discuss John motherfucking Egbert. In general, I think John wasn't that different in Act 6 compared to the previous acts. He's grown up somewhat due to his literal, actual growing up, but he's still John, curious, somewhat aloof, but wants to do the right thing most of the time, and still very easily manipulated. What changes the most, however, is his stance towards Vriska. As a bit of a refresher, John's attitude before Act 6 is one of parts admiration, a little bit of fear, but he still saw her as a friend, a good friend even. And he definitely reciprocated the crush she had on him, he just never really got the chance to say it back. Hell, he admitted as much to Karkat shortly after her death, and I quote,
Did you like her, you windsock-headed shitmouth, is what I'm asking? Well, yeah. Why?
Despite her confessions, he still actually cared for her and wanted her to be safe. Let's see how that changed in Act 6. In a word, John's attitude towards Vriska turns a lot more negative. The first time we see John mention Vriska in Act 6 is in a conversation with Jade while they're traveling the Yellow Yard. To summarize, John is incredibly dismissive of his feelings towards Vriska and their feelings towards him, calling it all something that just happened in one day. And you know, from a human perspective, that makes some sense. It was one day, 2 years ago. They did talk a few times and they did kind of like each other. But, you know, it wasn't just a random day. Arguably, that day was the most important day of John's life. Of all the beta kids' lives. And Vriska was a really important part of that important day. And while yes, he was being kind of facetious while he said that, he was obviously excited when he got to meet Vriska again. But in general, throughout Act 6, he grows more distant and negative to Vriska. He confesses to Roxy that he might actually hate her. While that's also revealed to be somewhat untruthful, there's still truth in what he's saying. After this point, they barely interact, and it's never really brought up again. And really, that's it for him Vriska-wise in Act 6? A few interactions, a few statements, in about 4,000 pages. And they basically end their relationship on a mutual adness in an interaction that feels like so little for something that felt like so much to me. Also, a little spoiler warning for Homestuck 2 here, but I just couldn't not mention this. In Homestuck 2, in the Candy route, John and Vriska meet once again for the first time since they created Earthsea. That's like 10 plus years of not seeing each other. And I could understand them not getting the spotlight in the finale of Act 6. Or well, it was more than just not getting the spotlight, and it was definitely more than just the finale. But this would have been the ultimate moment to start building on that relationship again. Maybe drop a few hints of their real feelings, or at least have John be like really happy to see her again. Yet their meeting after all this time is the most tame shit I've ever seen. I've seen more emotional meetings at airports. I've had more emotional meetings at airports. It's practically a goddamn kiss and ride between the two of them. And I understand that they're in a tense situation, but it feels so fucking hollow. Yeah, I mean, that's all I have to say for that, at least. Homestuck 2 video in 2 years. You know, I don't want to necessarily make negative videos like this. I love putting things in the spotlight more than I like tearing them down, and besides that, I love Homestuck as a comic, and like I said earlier, I like a lot of what Act 6 did and accomplished. But nearing the end of Act 5, this dynamic between Vriska and John is something that I personally was really attached to. And with the way it ended at the end of Act 5, I really wanted to see what happened next in that camp. So for me, it was just so, not devastating, but definitely very disappointing to see how they just fumbled it. And especially so for Vriska as a character. I really liked her in Act 5, and I was clamoring to see what else there was in store for her, but I think the way she's treated in Act 6 just kind of ruins all that goodwill I had for her. Again, if I had to describe my feelings on all of this, in a word, it'd be disappointment. Anyway, I think that's where I want to cap off this video. If you got this far without reading Homestuck, what the fuck are you doing? Go read it. And for the rest of you, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all later.